son? Where'd you find this?
Buckle up, buttercups. It's time to get down to business. Oh, yeah. It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Totally legit.
All right, folks, welcome back. It is once again the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. I've been rolling on episodes that have been months in the preparation, and yet another episode that has been months in preparation, debatably years at this point, because I've been following the progression of this project from the very beginning. But I'm super excited to talk to these guys. We've got Hani and Justin from Counters and Feelers.
Hello, hello.
Hello. What's up, man?
So, exactly. Yeah. The crowd goes wild. So, you know, I, for a little bit of context for everybody, Justin, when did you start telling me about this? Was it right after you had decided, or you guys already been kind of like plotting about putting this together?
I probably, for deeper context, I know James through my wife, and James are friends. So I was texting you probably early COVID about just playing music. And it may have been before writing any of this.
Gear.
So
yeah.
Probably immediately is my guess. Yeah, and gear. Yeah.
So this is a project that's been in the works for at least four years at this point. And it was mostly done remote, a little bit of you guys in the same room, but for the most part, you guys were spread out. Can you guys just kind of explain the backstory of how you guys know each other? And then, of course, like what inspires you to take on the most difficult thing of all time, and that's writing and recording a record from across the country.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Hani.
So basically, I was in a band called Ananova that was playing around the Sunset scene, and I learned of the band Clarity that Jay was playing in through some other mutual bands that were playing on the scene as well with us. And we all just started to hear about, I forget, what was the coffee shop?
Sacred Grounds.
Sacred Grounds was this cool spot.
Talk about lost documentaries that can never exist because there's no footage. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
that's a whole
fine.
topic.
But Sacred Grounds was this epic spot that we just got turned on to, you know, by linking with these Torrance kids. And so when I saw, Jay playing in Clarity and just Clarity in general, I thought they were a really talented band and took note. And so at some point, I think we played a show together in Hollywood, or we might not have, but
we played at the Roxy. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. And I just always took notice of Jay and Justin, the drummer, as, you know, special notice of these cats. I just felt they were really talented. And I've done that throughout my whole musical career, just for wanting to be inspired and making friends with people that I felt were really, you know, in it for the right reasons, and just kind of like my fascination with what made those types of people tick. So if I really felt you had something like that, I would hold on to them, and Jay was one of them. And so when my band was breaking up, I hit him up and said, hey, you know, just curious, maybe we can jam together. And we ended up just kind of getting into a room with my old bass player, Oliver, and basically Justin. And so we all got in together and we're throwing down. And over time, I found another bass player that ended up being in a racing tape with us through the Hollywood scene as well. And it kind of just blossomed. We created a racing tape. Shortly after that, probably within a year and a half, I think we played a show at USC before I graduated. And then the band kind of dissipated after that. We had about like 6 song skeletons. And after that, time just went, and I had always kept up with Jay, loved his graphic design, always just looked at him as a super creative, cool cat. And then I moved to Nashville. And so when I would have solo stuff, I'd always hit up Jay and be like, hey, can you do some graphic design for me? Love your style. And we just always kept up. But, as time goes by and everybody's busy, it would be a couple visits or, every couple years type of scenario. Sure. And just keeping up. But then the pandemic hit. And so I'm going to wrap this up. The pandemic hit. And, I started to look at my entire catalog of music, and that there was a lot of bands and stuff, including the project with Erasing Tape, where I was like, the only thing that you end up caring about a decade later, the things you completed. So I was like, we're all sitting around. I'm going to hit up the people that matter to me and complete the songs that I've always wanted to say, hey, those were done in my catalog. And 3 of those beautiful seeds, in my opinion, were erasing tape songs that just never got completed due to circumstance. And so I hit up Jay and said, hey, why don't we give it a shot? And he was totally on board, and we just went for it and started a few, and it just turned into this thing where our vibe clicked on such a good level, and we were just both so in it, and it just started to we got super inspired, and it turned into an endeavor to do a record that was way longer than we anticipated, but we
Jesus Christ,
we accepted to go all in, and we were like, we both had a dream to have wanted to do this, and so Jay's just always been hitting it from all these angles. I also do photography professionally, and so this is also in one unique way, and I know Jay likes to talk about this, so I'll let him elaborate on how we both kind of embrace this as both a project like our own little personal glass jaw where we can just write records as we want and just always have this bond, but also something where we're able to take our other artistic mediums and apply them into all aspects of this project. So it became that personal. And I'll let him elaborate more on that, but it's been a lot of me shooting stuff, him shooting stuff and editing, doing all of the editing. And, I'd come to town when I could, and we'd take photos and, come up with different concepts and relate it to the music. So we can all elaborate into that, but that's the damn, that was fucking long, but my brief into how we met, it's a long time. We've been friends for 20 years, something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
It's crazy. It's a long time.
Well, so, I don't think there's...
Love you, Jay.
Yeah, clearly. Well, and when you find people that you collaborate with, it's really hard to even think about collaborating with people that you don't because there's just variable. I could go collaborate with anybody else, but is it going to be the same as this connection that I know I already have with this person? We're going to be seeing things before they're completed. Am I going to share that precognizance with a new person or somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
But Justin, so what came first? Did you start going crazy with the gear before this? I just can't remember the timeline, but I do
started
remember
going crazy with gear a long time ago.
Yeah, that wasn't a thing that just started for this.
It was both. One egg, the other on, which was first, the chicken or the egg. I got into early COVID. I was playing guitar since I was 10, and I took a long break just because I didn't feel like playing anymore. I didn't feel like writing anymore. And I was creating other things. I'm always creating something, but it was not music. I listened to music the whole time. I kept up. I went to shows. I did, music related things. But early COVID, for whatever reason, I just got the itch to want to play guitar again. So I started playing guitar again. And then I fell back into the YouTube algorithm on effects pedals, which is straight up cocaine. And then so I started buying more guitar pedals. I bought right behind me there. This is a bass, the first bass I've ever owned. I wanted to play bass. I wanted to play bass when I was 8 years old, and I never bought one for some reason. So I said, fuck it. And I bought a bass. And then I bought a Telecaster, and then so it's just kind of, but I bought the bass kind of specifically after I was like, oh, I want to start recording stuff again, and I want to record bass. So I bought it for that. So I think that was the overlap, and it was pretty early in all that we started writing together, yeah.
Well, and you just, in general, there was a care and consideration for your tone and the idea of what it's supposed to sound like that most people just don't have. Most people are not thinking that. Most people will hear whatever gets recorded and they're like, yeah, that works. That's fine.
I think I have a few friends that are equally obsessive about the topic. That the guy that, we'll get into this too, but the guy that mixed this record, a good friend of mine, Nick, I was over at his place 2 days ago. We were just turning knobs on an amp. And my buddy Jeff too, he always, so I mean, I have to the side of me, I have a bunch of tube amps that I had when I was a kid. I never wanted to get rid of them. I actually bought another one of those too. But hybrid setup, is great for me. I like analog stuff. I live in an apartment. I can't blast things, so it was a good like compromise. And then Nick makes his own impulse responses, which sound ridiculous. So I've been using those. It's just a combination of stuff. Yeah, but it's the hunt for tone, man. I don't know. It's fun. It's part of it. It's like the technical nerdy part of it. You know.
Well, you know, it is technical and nerdy, but it like there's a portion of it that, at least for me, that drives my creativity. I'm gonna, if I'm hearing a certain effect or I'm playing around with a certain thing, it's gonna make me do different stuff on the guitar.
Yeah.
It's an important piece, but it is really funny to me how that like escalated very quickly, and it seemed like it was really ramping up as you were going into this record. You were like constantly getting stuff or like eyeing stuff.
Nick Morozov is like 50% that.
He's partly to blame. Yeah, it's partially.
He's very strongly half of it, probably.
Was there any like, I just did a record with my buddy Clint where we did kind of something similar. We resurrected songs that were skeletons that never got the attention they deserved on a recording. Was there any element of like opening up that aspect of your life or that history of your life that was weird? Was it weird like going back to that time and I'm also assuming that whatever those skeletons were, they changed before they got on the record, but was there like an element for either one of you where it was like painful or weird just going back to what mindset you were in 10 years ago?
Hanny, I'll throw that to you.
I don't think that it's so much. I mean, this all varies on different topics and stuff, but with these particular songs, I kept the only thing that I've kept that's been similar, in my opinion. Well, give and take. There's a melody in Turning Tables, and then a little bit of a melody and kind of vocal vibe for When We Sleep. That I kept the inspiration, so you could tell if you heard the original, but the topics and the whole route and vibe as to where the song went changed entirely.
Gotcha.
For everything.
You updated it, yeah.
I updated everything to a level that to me it's unrecognizable because I was in a unique place at the time because my band Anna Nova was doing pretty well on the scene and we were thriving, and so when we ended kind of abruptly, and then I put together a racing tape with Jay. Things were moving fast, and we were trying to write a ton and get things going and have that show. And there was a lot of pressure, but a lot of things where it was a phase where I felt personally like I was experiencing life and in my head, and not so much in a state of writing a ton of lyrics. And so for me, it was a different approach. So Jay would probably have a very different thing to say about this with relation to riffs. But to me, it was a very different thing. It was more like, I love the foundation of what we had, and I miss some of those riffs. And I like that, I'm a guitar player as well. And when I write and play on my stuff, I sing a certain way. And I love that. And it's very dear to me and part of my identity too. But then I love, collaborating with unique guitar players that do things that I totally wouldn't, and I know that. And I get to just be a front man and kind of let loose and see this whole other side of myself as well, where it's very vocal heavy and lyrical heavy, and I'm just completely immersed in that. So in that sense, I was more excited to rehash out things I missed in Jay, and I didn't care if I kept a single melody. I just was more connected to, damn, why are those seeds sitting around? And then the other aspect that I haven't even mentioned yet is Jay's a good friend of mine. Like I said earlier, I keep a lot of my dear friends over time. I'm one of those types of people that if I haven't talked to you in 8 months, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, it's weird. No, it's not weird. There's life. I love you. Just give me a call,
We'll catch up.
Yeah, there's never a thing. And that's how I maintain a lot of friendships. And so there are seasons where I'm really closer with certain people than other periods, but my closest will always hear from me and be within that kind of scene. And so I always seen Jay like that for me personally. And so it was really exciting where we were both on the same page, and he started to get this really beautiful energy to wanting to explore new riffs and stuff, because as he mentioned earlier, he had put the instrument down for a while. And I hadn't experienced that. I'd just been going hard on guitar and, writing and singing, and kind of like I moved to Nashville and got a whole different approach and inspiration on music and started filming and, got a different medium. So that was cool, but he got to kind of tap out and then tap back in like full force. And where I was able to meet him with that energy is I hadn't just been a front man on anything for like 10 years. I'd been releasing catalog and kind of like just getting things going, but to take the approach where I put down the guitar and just completely said, okay, we're going to co-produce this, but we're going to sit together and like, a lot of what we said, which is very interesting in how we approach this too, was, if something really rubbed you wrong or there was something structural that you really wanted to talk about, let's talk about it. And we would embrace the process of kind of writing through things and like give each other time. That a lot of the time it'd be like I'd go dark with Jay on a song, and and then boom, I just drop something, be like, check this out, and it'd be like a whole skeleton, or the song's done. To me, also,
I wrote a bunch of weird shit, so I was like,
and yeah, exactly. He'd throw me a bunch of random riffs and shit and
like
random
no choruses,
titles, which we'll get into, stuff like that. And it was very challenging. It was stuff that I was always like, in truth, back in the erasing tape days, I wasn't necessarily ready to throw down on certain riffs like that. And Jay was also digging for some pretty heavy shit. Like, we still had a really good equation. I just think all the stuff we were digging for was different. And what I felt was we literally aligned in such a really cool way, where the balance of melody, the balance of odd times, the balance of unique structures, and not doing this shit because we're trying to do it, doing it because we've always kind of had this, fascination and interest in similar music and vibes and stuff like that. And just going off this really cool energy where Jay and I would have, hours long conversations about music and, life. And, what I love about Jay, he continuously is on his computer. So he fires off these video samples and songs and check this out and boom, and you're going back and forth. And it's really great and engaging to be able to have artistic conversations when you're giving examples left and right, and to keep each other really tight and current on the situation at hand or whatever interest you're discussing. So it's been cool, even though remote, we've put in the time, we put in the love, and we didn't pressure each other to finish. And that was hard for both of us, but we accepted that this is something we invested deeply into, and that we're lucky we have this, we'll get into the whole name thing, but this really cool yin and yang chemistry, that most of the time flows pretty nicely. And so it's sick in that it's been patient, and we've lived so much life in 5 years. It's unbelievable. The guys got married. I lost my dad, we've been through a lot of stuff and supported each other through it, which has been also very special. So this record embodies all of that, which is pretty incredible,
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really get cooler than that. I've always looked at every record as kind of a snapshot of what was going on in my life at that point. And there's some things I like to go back and listen to and revisit, and there's other things I'm less inclined to. But when you get something that has a special, where the whole experience, the collective experience of the creation of this thing is a good thing, it's a good experience for you, that is magical. That no amount of money, in my opinion, can make up for that. That is why we do this kind of stuff,
Absolutely.
I mean, my answer to this is kind of different, just because of Han used the word that I like to use, which is seeds, ideas. This record is 50% brand new stuff and 50% abandoned ideas that I never got to, as far as riffs that I've just guitar parts that I've written. 2 of them were erasing tape songs that we finished. One of them was a Clarity song that was a couple of riffs that I completely changed. And then 2 of them were random. One of them was a random idea I wrote in a friend's garage when I was sleeping at his place because I didn't have an apartment in Torrance. And another one was literally I have a video of me the first time I was 7 months old at Christmas time at my grandparents' place. And they just put me in front of my grandma's upright piano and I just like mashed some stuff and I like used that and I like, wrote a part that's behind a song. Like, so that's technically inspiration for a song. I put piano in that song because it was me. Like, so like, I guess that's a seed, but there's stuff from like all over the span of literally my entire life on this, you know? So like it is, I don't view it it is kind of like a collective of stuff that I never got to complete too. And like a big chunk of those were, before with Hani as well, you know, but it's great to like have it be a thing, you know.
Of the existing parts that you ended up salvaging, were there any that you really hated to relearn? Like, were there any where you're like, why did I do this to myself?
Oh, technically, the chorus of When We Sleep sucks to play. I got better at it. It's just like fucking weird. I don't know how to explain it. I just posted a video on it.
I got better at it. You wrote it, bro.
Doesn't mean you can.
No one's better at playing it than you. You wrote that shit.
I guess. I'm sure somebody could get better at it than me.
Yeah, it's true. That's
well, I mean, you do like definitely recording and practicing to record. Like you'll get it there, and it's usually not that big a deal. In many cases, you've evolved as a guitar player since you were first playing it, so theoretically, it should be easier, but. There's just like some aspect, like whenever I do that, whenever I pull from an old idea, I'm always like, oh yeah, this sounds cool. This sounds great. And then I sit down to play it and I'm like, why? How did I do this the first time? And why am I doing this right now? But then, you know.
Yeah. In reflecting and like kind of going back to some of the old, like comparing and contrasting later, I wrote faster things when I was younger, which might make sense.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to write faster things now, I guess. It's just not my default. Like I wrote heavier stuff that's new, but it's slow heavy, you know? Yeah, I don't know. That's like a very specific difference. More schizo-chaotic bullshit, I guess.
Well, and I'm sure both of you, like your musical tastes have changed and evolved over that time, you know, definitely. Yeah. Were the bands that you were in, did they sound like Counters and Feelers, or were they like more hardcore, heavy metal type stuff?
Less hardcore, less metal, I think.
So it did kind of sound like this in a way.
I think so.
I don't know.
I think Erasing Tape was, I mean, Turning Tables was an Erasing Tape song, and so is When We Sleep. But I think it just, the style of,
I mean, I'll put it sorry, go ahead. Please complete the thought.
I think it's just like the foundational like direction of it is less like post-hardcore. It used to be. Sure. It is now. Like I love post-hardcore. I like writing post-hardcore, and I like listening to hardcore and, you know, metalcore. This isn't metalcore, but I'm influenced by those things, and I think it's more driving than it was, and it was more like kind of vibey and like soulful and alt-rocky, which is also awesome, and I like both of them. But like that was kind of the contrast that I would pick out personally, from an instrumental perspective, at least, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, I started pretty much, I've always been a heavy cat, loving heavy music and just kind of heavy energy and all that stuff. But I kind of, and this is indicative in my past bands, where I would either be playing with people that were heavier than I, you know, would be contributing, and they would, you know, they're looking for something heavier, or I would be in something chiller and I'd be trying to give it that little edge, right? And so it was always hard because I knew that my perfect hybrid was somewhere, and I've achieved it. Like I put out a solo record with some collaborators I loved, and that was a hybrid and stuff, but it's still, you know, it just shifts. It's like, you know, depending on who you're with and kind of what that intention is. And so my thing was, I always wanted to define different projects in my life and not have to be the guy that's stuck in one fucking genre. Jay has always been, I've watched him get into really trippy, heavy shit, and I've always admired it. There was just a period where I didn't know how to sing on some of it, and I wasn't necessarily even ready to admit that to myself when I was younger. I was just like, what the fuck is this? You know, I'm sure I can figure something out, but I didn't love what I was coming up with. And I kept trying to make it glue into some song structure. And we just hadn't found that kind of gel. And what I'm kind of alluding to is like, for Our Pets Think That We Are, that's a perfect example of him kind of playing that way and me still doing my thing and us being able to meet each other halfway, but it working really fucking well and really cool. Whereas back in the day, if he would have shown me that riff, I could do a lot of heavy shit, but I probably would have screamed on it. I would have tried different things that were more emotional than really thinking about how to structure that song and tell the story that I was able to tell this time, and lighten it up in little areas in my own way. Where his heavy, if I would have just leaned into the heavy shit topic wise and everything, balls to the wall, it would have been burly, and that's great, but that wasn't the vibe I got on this one for me personally. So it's, I think the cool thing with Jay and I is I grew up with damn near folk bluesy shit all the way to alt rock. Thrash metal is my foundation. I loved post-hardcore. He and I kind of, the turnaround for me was Coheed and Cambria, Glassjaw, Circa Survive. Those are the bands that when they were kicking, my band was playing a lot, and I was starting to have a shift even in my own sound because I was just like so in love with this vibe, and it was just an influence. And then when I saw Clarity, these guys were playing within that kind of like direction, not as heavy yet, but definitely, melodic, but still fucking like, hardcore in ways. Or what would you fucking call Clarity, brother?
I don't know anymore.
You don't? I mean, it was some emo
at the time.
shit.
It could have been screamo-ish, but it was not super screamy. I mean, I guess post-hardcore-ish, so earlier Finch, I guess, whatever you would classify that type of stuff, or like Seosin. Yeah.
Okay. And so that's where Jay kind of became like a little bit of a tastemaker for me too, where when I linked up with him, we were, me and a handful of other cats would discuss bands, and, he's always been kind of stretching himself to know all the bands on the scene. And I'm more of the cat that will like find the ones I fall absolutely madly in love with, and I obsess over them and their records, but I have a way less reach than the cats that are, just trying to hear fucking a handful of a gazillion bands. And neither is wrong. It's just the vibe that, so I love to lean on cats like him and a handful of other cats, and discuss, our favorite bands and records and all that sort of stuff. But I learn a lot from them because, that's their passion.
Which is why, James, when I first met you, and do you remember what hoodie you were wearing when I met you?
The Danza hoodie.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck? This guy.
I just had them on the podcast yesterday.
No shit.
They're back together. They're
incredible.
Gonna, do some music. I just had them on. Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. The fact that, because I was like, I'm going to meet, my wife is not into, for some reason, except knock blues, which is awesome. She doesn't like heavy music mostly. So I was like, when I meet one of her friends that's wearing a Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza hoodie, I'm like, oh, my people, cool. Yeah.
It's like that hoodie specifically is like a calling card. Like I'll go into a place and I'll immediately know who I'm okay to talk to and who I should probably avoid just by their reaction.
We were best friends immediately.
Yeah, no, seriously. And that's how that works. Well, and it's funny that you guys say that too, because I always, when I was younger, it was always heavy. I wanted to be heavy. And it wasn't until I expanded my musical palette that I started to want to experiment with more things. Another band, and I'm sure, Justin, I've told you this a bunch, but another band that I hear in your guys' music is Dredge. And I don't know if you're familiar with Dredge at all.
Love Dredge.
Yeah. So that was, I remember El Cielo, like the first time I heard that, I didn't realize that you could make dynamic music that was that captivate. I just didn't understand because it wasn't heavy. And that was my kind of gateway into this whole world. But there was a lot of this stuff on this record that I liked because that was like it was a particular moment in my life where the blinders were taken off. My palette was expanded. Glassjaw is also, I'm a huge fan of Glassjaw. Justin will tell you, I tried twice to go see Glassjaw in LA, and both times they got COVID and canceled the show.
You're shitting me.
I only flew all the way across the country for it twice. Wow,
I'm so sorry, man.
Well, it is what it is.
I'd have done it too, though, and that's legit as hell. Respect, especially a New Yorker. You were like, dude. That's real dedication.
I have no empathy towards you complaining about not seeing Glassjaw shows when you're in fucking New York, when you get all the Glassjaw shows.
Every time I have tried, the tickets have sold out. You don't understand. Glassjaw fans in New York will literally kill you for a ticket.
I bet, yeah.
But
that's the vibe. I want to be in it.
I would kill to go to a Glassjaw show in New York.
In New York, yeah. Because they played, I used to live in Greenpoint, and they were playing at this defunct bar called St. Vitus, which was epic. That bar was
I've heard of
like
that
the
place.
metal bar. And I just stood outside the door to listen. Legitimately, it was freezing. It was the middle of winter, and I stood outside so I could kind of hear the show. But I mean, sold out immediately. Anyways, we're getting a little. I'm taking this down a tangent that's completely unnecessary.
We talk about that band all the time, bro. We really do.
to bring it
this is
back,
normal shit between me and Jay.
You mentioned Dredge. Mark Engel's legit one of my, as far as rhythm guitar goes, like,
I
didn't realize how influenced I was by Mark Engels until I I was re-establishing when I started playing again. I'm like, what is my style? What is/was my style? Like, what's my thing? And I watched Mark Engels play. I'm like, oh, it's so much from him. I quite literally, you mentioned tone hunting earlier. Like, I went for actually like the leitmotif tone. Like, my crunch tone is as close to his tone as anything. Like, I put on those records. I've found live stuff. I also discovered he has the exact same 50-watt JCM 900 and the exact same Gibson SG. It's just like the same rig. Yeah. I stole that crazy echo delay effect you hear in all of like Mars Volta, you hear in Circa Survive, Sound of Animals Fighting. I saw a video of Colin referencing Mark Engels, and it's like the Dredge thing, so I found and bought that. You know what I mean? So Dredge is absolutely, as far as like the guitar playing goes, I love that guy's playing. I think he's incredible. Yeah. So definitely spot him.
Both Dredge and Glassjaw, in my opinion. I mean, Glassjaw does get a lot of credit. But I feel like both of those bands are like the bands that our favorite bands would be listening to. You know what I mean? Like, maybe they didn't have the mainstream success as Seosin or Circa Survive, but those bands were listening to Dredge and Glassjaw and pulling influence from them.
Yeah, I think that's probably,
and there's just, like, I hear so much of that on this. Again, it's one of my favorite parts because that record is one of easily on my Mount Rushmore of records. And
dude, I love that. I mean, that's a great compliment. So that's way cool. It's nice to hear that reference.
Speaking of talking about the music, I'd love if we could maybe play one of the songs now, and then we can get into like then we can get into the process of putting the whole record together, which I definitely want to spend some time on. But we're gonna play I Hate White Rabbits first. Can you guys just give us a little summary on, I guess, the story of this song?
Before we go or after?
Let's do before. Yeah, let's do before.
Go for it, Henny. I'll add anything else that might be separate.
Jeez. Okay, so basically it's like a metaphor, which I thought was cool that I learned of, where it's a Native American kind of folklore metaphor that I'm getting inspired by, where you would, if you're sitting around a campfire and smoke was blowing in your face, they say that if you say, I hate white rabbits 3 times in a row, the smoke will change direction and change course. And so I used that in relation to someone that I held dear, but kept finding them in a situation of kind of blowing smoke and not being truthful. And it was affecting my relationship to them. So the rest is self-explanatory in the song, but it's a fun spin on playing with the concept of that.
I love that.
And making them disappear.
I love that.
The magic aspect as well. Great. So, yeah.
All right, cool. And I'm just gonna, for the backdrop for this, I want to share the Instagram. So, that's just what will be up there as we're playing this. But here we go. This is I Hate White Rabbits by Counters and Feelers.
Your sleeve,
Shit sounds so good, dude. It's ridiculous, and we'll get into that. Yeah, we'll get into that here in a second.
Thanks, man.
The production on this shit is just, it is easily the best production I've heard on somebody who's doing a remote record for the first time with a project. It is easily by far, like, it holds up to any record of that original time period, early 2000s, that I would compare to. So I just
awesome, bro. Cheers to that. Thank you.
We can give more shout outs to the engineer later, but like, this is
big time.
This is what
shout out to Nick
hunting.
Morzov, hard as fuck. Yeah,
dude. 100%.
I'll say his name all throughout this episode.
Love that motherfucker, dude.
And
if you don't mind, James, I want to say one thing though. I know we'll get into it, but a big one that I like to say is, Travis Fodor came in and threw down some synth for us on the beginning of this track. And he was a good friend of Nick's, and Nick connected us, in a moment where we were heavily debating on if we were just going to leave those naked drums, if we were going to cut them entirely. Like, Jay and I were in love with this song, and it was an interesting thing because the chorus came together, the vibe on the verses came together. It was just something where we knew that this could possibly be both of our favorite song, and I don't know if it still exists. Like, it's definitely up there for me, but it was one of those where I was like, man, what are we going to do with these drums? And it was a little unsettling, but it was something that we were waiting towards the end of our recording process. And then this just really came together where, Travis jumped into the sphere, was super outgoing and kind about it, and was just like, yeah, throw it to me. And the first thing this fucking cat popped out was the vibe. It was like that. So I'll
that
let
was
Jay,
V1. There was no revisions. He was like, he's like, oh, do you want us to do anything? He's like, no, print it. We're done.
And he didn't expect that, which was super fun. But it was like, dude, you captured it. And, and I know that as a musician. Jay definitely, like, one of the most important things is to also know when you got it. It's like with any type of art form, like, you can chase your tail forever. But when something's wonderful and embraces everything and is on point, then there is no need to chase it, right? And that was one of those moments. So cheers to Travis. Cheers to Nick. These cats are really epic. They're the only two that were involved in that realm where, but just mad gratitude to those guys in that sense. So
100%.
Anyway.
They nailed it, and they definitely deserve their flowers.
Yeah.
It's a full package.
Ah, fuck, I don't even know what their favorite flowers are, bro. We'll figure that shit out.
Yeah, later. Well, I'm sure they're not going to be.
I'll text them
mad.
later. It'll be fine.
But on that note, this being incredible production for the first time you guys are releasing anything, the visual component of your band and your release strategy was also very impressive. This doesn't happen by accident. This has a lot of thought and intention behind it, and I'm wondering if I'm doing this on opera right now, so it has me logged out, but that's fine. I guess if you could speak to a little bit of like, what were both of your mindsets in going into. One of the things I appreciated about it, and it's probably the same way with a lot of the bands that we mentioned and some of the records that they've done, is it's a record. It's not a bunch of songs that got mashed together. It's a record with an intent and a story to some extent. There's an arc of emotion across the record, and I'm wondering if you guys can kind of speak to what it was like developing that, what were your thoughts behind developing it, and then we can kind of get into execution.
Sure. Jay, you want to jump on this? I'll jump in after.
There's so many things, different topics. I mean, I'll leave the arc lyrically and story wise to you, Hani. Obviously, I've been a graphic designer since before I was a professional. I mean, I'm a product designer by trade. I used to be a graphic designer. I still like doing. I'm a photographer. I do all sorts of side creative digital things. So I always like, Hani mentioned this earlier, I wasn't really viewing this as like a band as much as like an art project where there's a musical element to it, just because I like creating full packages of things. I think personally that, I guess specifically album covers and branding are so important to like the whole experience of a band. You know what I mean? not even just talking about a band's success, just like a band's ethos. Like growing up and still today, love Linkin Park. Mike Shinoda was a graphic designer, art student, and it shows. Like their entire stuff is so buttoned. I mean, they work with other people, but like he was a big part of the branding of that project. Nine Inch Nails, Trent's had the same creative director for so much of his music. It shows, you know what I mean? There's like a feeling to it. So I always like paid so much attention to those elements, you know what I mean? And I cared about those things. So when it came to this project, I was like, well, I want to have I think I have a certain type of style visually. So like, let's figure out where this crosses over, work together on stuff. Hani does video content stuff. So there's it was a lot of how can we both DIY this as much as possible and throw all of our skills into the hat with Nick Morzov, and just do it with as little people as possible and make it what we want it to be, yeah, I'm rambling at this point. Hani, I'll throw it to you for lyric stuff. Yeah.
You're fine, brother. That was fine. I think that in making this record, the cool thing is that I had already trusted in Jay for a lot of this artwork in the past. He knew exactly what I love about his style with graphic design. And it's not new for us to work together and discuss band type of stuff and kind of like this vision. The big thing that was new is, I think for me, I'd always wanted to do a record, and I'd done EPs, I'd done singles, I've done, and I got close to doing a record with my old band Ananova before we broke up. And so when it came down to this, when we didn't have a timeline, and I knew that both of us had this enormous kind of thirst for creativity and a great bond, that we were going to be able to make a record without boundaries, and we were going to be able to do exactly what Jay said, bring all of these mediums together to tell a story that we've never been able to do. Even with our skills back when we were younger, we didn't have them as refined to be able to come in and do what we did this time. And there was a lot of the cool thing is, with lyrics and conceptualizing themes and stuff, I would be more heavy lifting with themes and that sort of stuff. Lyrics is 100%, me. But with Jay, he is where we balance incredibly is he'll get a theme from me and get an emotional concept, and he just fucking drives it home. He'll take that, interpret it, and rolls, and it's you can tell how many clients this guy has satisfied in the fucking past, because it's I'm sure they've annoyed the shit out of him. And for me, there's that element where I know how to talk to Jay, but it's also I'm one of those creatives that, I'm always searching and I bounce around the room and I have to refine myself to get there. And so it's cool because Jay he knows that about me and knows how to ask the questions to kind of get that. And I will, come back and be okay, I want to tweak it like this. So what about this concept? And a lot of the times we've even tried to, we'll have a song name or something, or this would happen with the album title. That's better than the song name, where we were just trying to beat it. We had it, but we were trying to beat it, and nothing could fucking beat it. And that validated
and the band name
it.
Too. We settled the band name for me.
Completely. Yeah. And it was so we went through a lot, and it was a really cool thing of having more, things to think over. But once we really we're man, everything we're doing is, like you said, curated with thought. And my big thing and back a little bit to the kind of theme and the, visual or the aesthetic, a big part of it, I was look, I love bands like Radiohead, fucking Sleep Token, Tool, bands that have icons, really unique fucking identities, and I knew Jay is the type of guy that if he's pouring his heart into some shit, and it's the record that he's always wanted to do too, he was going to absolutely fucking take on that, challenge. And so when it was just, I knew he was going to give everything he had. And for me, it was about nudging in directions that I felt passionate about as well, knowing that, where Jay is really inquisitive and wants to make sure in a really cool way that he's less lyrical, but he wants it to connect for me. He wants the story to matter. He cares about those details aligning in a really cool way where the dots connect. And that's incredibly important for me, because I've always dreamt of, we write songs for singles, we write our EPs and shit, but like when you write a record, whether people want to, dig beneath the surface or peel, away the layers are there. And that's what's so epic about this. Like you were saying earlier, like, and we talked about life events that have happened and the bonding that's happened and taking our time with things, not just saying, oh shit, we got to get this deadline out. They're waiting for us, being able to literally go, did we, of course there's an element of compromise here, but luckily we're bonded enough that if the compromise would be too much, it'd also be difficult because I've never been able to walk into a sitch where Jay and I, and sorry, I'll get back to topic, but we're able to just be ourselves and it worked on so much of it. You know what I mean? Without just like, hey, can you tweak this? Can you tweak that? And so I think back to the aesthetic thing and the overall vibe of all aspects of the record, we found each other's strengths. We're lucky that in areas, where he likes to do less of things, where I would even try to, send out emails and try to get a little bit of the strategy of trying to get, spins out there and how to go about that. He'd be right there with me with all that shit. But Jay would be editing to the last minute, busting his ass on stuff. And, when I'd be coming to town for things related to family stuff that was really intense, I'd be bringing outfits and coming up with like locations and he'd be doing the same. And we'd be just off the cuff getting these moments together, to kind of be these bridging moments, that both connect us to where we were when we were younger and we lived both in LA. And I have that like identity and connection to LA where, I'm so rooted there. So I love being with Jay and doing content with Jay and it feels natural even when we're there together. But, also just now I'm fucking rambling, but it's just that's essentially the whole point of coming together on those aspects where we're able to be in the same room and create was really special. And then there was a moment too where Jay and I didn't know how well Jay was going to edit video stuff, and Jay didn't know the type of stuff. I
didn't know how to edit video stuff.
Yeah,
I taught myself how to.
But that's it. And the shooting and stuff. I didn't know how Jay shot. I knew him as a graphic designer.
Either.
He didn't. That's exactly it. And when we would talk about like the singles and conceptualize things together, we'd bounce it off and it'd be like, how is this going to turn out? And it was just interesting and fun. And so, and he crushed it. And then when I would come and I would do some story stuff in Nashville, he didn't know if the stuff I was going to shoot and my perspective was going to align. And I kid you not, man, it just fucking fit like a glove. I mean, it was something really special because we started to get more excited and go, oh shit, like this is really working.
Coming together.
Yeah. It was like, and it was like a wild animal because it wasn't something where we had all the content just completely ready. It's something that we've been working and chugging along while shit was out and we were like, dealing with feedback and the excitement of the singles coming. We're still sitting there fucking, chugging along, trying to keep up and push through and hit our deadline for the record release. So it has been epic, exhausting, but absolutely fucking amazing. And so, it's a huge undertaking and I'm super grateful to have achieved this and be in this space and be proud of a record like this, so it's awesome.
Well, and again, like when you find somebody that you can collaborate with like that, I feel like oftentimes the things do just fall into place. Mm-hmm. Like everyone finds where they get in, where they fit in, and no one really has to struggle because the collective energy, synergy of everyone aiming toward this goal, the gaps get filled where they should by the person that should fill them at that moment. I don't know. Well,
yeah.
you guys had also mentioned like a yin and yang component to this, and I even see it with like the imagery from the band. Justin,
100%.
Can you kind of explain how like conceptually from the visual perspective where your mind was at and how you fleshed out all of this idea?
We were I'm famously historically terrible at naming things. So I came up with like a few ideas to throw in the hat.
It's been comical. No, I'm joking.
Hanny maybe came up with 30,000 name ideas. That's an exaggeration. A lot of name ideas. There's a lot of calls where he's like, what about this? What about this? What about this? So like counters and feelers came up and I was like, that's dope. Different. I didn't think I liked it a lot at first. I don't think any name sounds good before you associate it with the thing. For me, at least. There's plenty of band names that I think probably sound stupid until you like associate it with the band. There's some band names that are just great immediately. Circus Survive, I think is dope immediately. Solar Power Sun Destroyer, dope immediately. So like
Counters and Feelers, dope immediately. What the fuck?
So that name we started to we sat on it for a long time. As Hani mentioned, we tried to beat it. It didn't get beaten. When I heard that name immediately, conceptually, that whole name, this goes into wider topics, but I can't talk about visuals without going into it. Like, the name essentially means like our logical brain and our emotional brain and the balance between them, which is very yin yang. It's very balanced. And it's like how everybody has left brain energy, everybody has right brain energy, which are the two kind of the two segue tracks on the record are left brain and right brain. For that reason, it's all tied in. So when I was like thinking of the aesthetic for all of this, which I didn't really start thinking about too much until I had the band name ready to work with, I was like immediately seeing something with yin yang influence, like poles, separate poles. I wanted something symmetrical. I wanted something that was. I like strong icons without words. There's a reason I didn't want to put any words on the record. Our LP cover doesn't have anything on it. It's just the artwork. I like doing that, especially in a digital era. It's not paired. It's never not paired with all the information and metadata you need anyway. So like when I was working on all the artwork, I was like, okay, I want to balance these things. I want to balance logical kind of like mathematical stuff. I don't want to balance like these broad conceptual kind of like creative clouds of thought, right? So the logo is that, and like if the full text logo, the T in Counters is the flipped upside down version of the L in Feelers, as a kind of a nod to like the logo itself, which is two parts that are identical and rotated on itself.
I didn't even notice that until you just said it.
Layers, brother.
So tasty.
That and like another, like, this isn't part of like the design. It is, but I guess, the curated aesthetic. Every single post we've made on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube has, I call them glyphs, but I guess they are glyphs. There's like a certain, I found, and these are things that can be typed with your keyboard with some weird alt command, but I found like a whole Unicode Wikipedia page, and I was scrolling through looking for cool stuff because I always kind of like things like that because it's things you can do in text documents or in comments, which is kind of unique. You can't invade branding in a comment unless you make your branding around Unicode, like existing things. So I found a series of these icons that were in these circles. I'm like, these are kind of dope. What are these? Not that it would matter if what they were. They ended up being mathematical type icons. I'm like, oh, this is kind of perfect. So like, what if we took these mathematical shapes, icons, we purposed them, and we associated like emotional things to them, or concepts, or feelings or things to them, and we associated those things as these mathematical icons with these emotional connections into our posts, and so like each time you see one of those, it means like we have like a key for ourselves to like remember which ones mean what and stuff, but we associated them loosely with like what the post was about or what we were talking about. So like it even goes down to that, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like this whole collective of like ideas and concepts that we're doing beyond just like me hitting Photoshop, you know what I mean?
Yeah. This is again like this, when I think of the records that like really made me double down on music, it was records that had this level of thought, and I was always the person I wanted to know it. I wanted to read the liner notes. I wanted to figure out whatever mystery. I was on the forums, reading through what other people thought, how they were interpreting it. This is also why I'm like, in my older age, I'm just like, fuck shows. This is cooler. And bands only have the opportunity to really explore like this. They don't get a chance on every album, especially if your goal is to tour and churn out music. You just can't put this much pre-thought into it.
Yeah, it's a unique circumstance
you guys nail it. Like, you really, the full package was here. And again, Justin, just from having like the insight when you were telling me about what you were planning and like kind of giving me sketches of stuff as you were recording it, I could see it. You know, that's what you get for planning. When you plan something that well, when you have a really good idea of what you're trying to do, it ends up perfect. And kind of what we were talking about before, it's another layer of this we can just make this work. Neither one of you thought like you were fighting any of this project. And because of that, you have something that's way greater than even just the sum of its parts, you know?
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, thank you. I appreciate
thank you,
that.
brother. Absolutely.
So
and you're the type of fan we're looking for, the ones that dig, right?
Well, honestly, they're the only ones that matter. Like it does, you know, all of my favorite bands, the bands that I would really think are like impactful to me, very few of them are mainstream. And it's because in the mainstream, you just can't. Pink Floyd was the last band that was doing this. Tool, even like Tool used to be about this, but they've kind of grown away from that in the favor of like being able to put out more music and stuff. So
well, they have a different art guy now too. I think when that guy switched, it was different.
Yeah,
like the last record was a different guy.
And in truth, I think like also in this day and age, we all listen to so much that I definitely lightheartedly listen to certain bands and other ones I dig into. So I like the idea that, you know, there are certain songs, at least I hope, that are still digestible on this record to people that are just kind of brushing the surface. And that's perfectly fine. That doesn't bother me. I wanted to look back with Jay and be like, okay, man, like if we're going to hit topics like this, and this is something that was important too. Jay was very respectful on the fact that when I saw what we were creating, I told him, look, dude, I'm going to like really lean in to what's going on in my life and personal topics and not hold back on this shit, even if it can be very vulnerable. And he was super into it. You know, he's like, cool, I respect it. Like, let's go all in then, you know, and that sort of stuff. And so even for, you know, asking what singles to pick and all that sort of stuff, that has been a really cool, respected tone the whole way through this process. And, you know, and it allowed me to lean in on that level. And I hope I gave Jay the same respect with a lot of, you know, his approach towards the creative mediums in guitar and structure. And we've done our best to support each other and lift each other up and be fans of each other, you know, which is really cool. So
it's been interesting to, like, I recently discovered that there's this, I guess it's an essay. It's a French essay called Death of the Author. But it essentially refers to like once a creative is done with a project, it's no longer theirs and it's out, right? And you can't like James, your interpretation of everything is whatever yours was with any piece of work, right? I've had this though with like this project a few different times in the middle of it. I wrote an instrumental and I let go of it, you know, and then Hani did whatever his interpretation is without my knowing where I got it from. And there's that. And then the artwork is another stage. So I've been kind of like step by step letting go of parts of it, you know, and it's been a month or so now and it's like totally out and it's like still weird, I guess, but like it's been great, you know? Yeah.
Well, you know, it is no longer yours, but it is yours. You know, you can always look back. I
can't change any. I like changing shit. I can't change it.
And honestly,
I love being at this point, though.
Yes, there's a finality to like. This is my favorite part.
Now I want to just make new shit.
Yeah, finally, my head is clear for me to be able. For me, I've always looked at like once the record goes out, like that's. Anything I want to do, I had plenty of chance to do it. Once it goes out, that is what it is.
Dude,
and,
it's up until literally driving up to the fucking studio, final day, last takes. You can make changes, but
once you commit it,
that's it.
That's it.
Little Easter egg. This is kind of there's a fucking hilarious Easter egg I didn't notice until Masters came back, and I was like, oh fuck! And then I actually realized I loved it. At the very end of Phobia, which is the last track on the record, you can go back and hear this. It's published. That song ends with like me, like it's like a long chord ring out, and I'm trying to get feedback. I recorded here, I didn't have a loud 412 blaring. I had my Yamaha monitors, my HS7s. So in the ring out, I let the guitar ring out.
Plugging in.
Yeah. And I let my guitar, I put my guitar up to my monitor and it was blasting the track. You can hear the click track for a minute through my pickup. Yeah. And I was like, don't care. That's dope, actually. Because it was like, it's like a weirdly analog moment, I don't know. It was, but yeah, there's all sorts of shit like that. Like if I had known that, I would have taken that out. But I actually like it now that it's forced to be in there. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of a real moment.
Happy accidents kind of deal.
Shit like that. Anyway.
Yeah, again, like those, that there's perfection and imperfection. I'm sure any one of us would talk about a record that we think is perfect, and if we talk to the people that made it, they'd be like, "Oh man, I hate this." Oh, if you listen
100%.
really closely, you can hear somebody taking a shit. Like,
yeah,
that always is the case. But again, like there's some delicious beauty in that. There's like the perfection in the imperfection of it.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's why when so many things are digital, it's why I like analog stuff. Like, and there's plenty of digital in the process of what happened.
Sure.
But like the analog stuff is what makes it feel different, or it's like where the personality is. You know what I mean? Like your imperfection. I forgot what the quote came from. Like your imperfections is your style. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not my quote. I forgot who said that.
I didn't realize that part at the end though, Jay, was not intentionally left there because I've been fine.
No,
with
I missed
that.
it.
Oh, I didn't. I was like, yeah, it's personality,
No, Masters came back. I was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, all good.
You can only hear it if you have headphones on pretty loud or if you're blasting.
That's hilarious.
It's character, dude. That's what
But no,
it is.
yeah, I had a similar approach, man, even with the vocals. Like I told Jay with the performance and whatnot that it was like, look, I'm not some fucking superhero and on the mic. I try to do my best to be accurate from, my heroes are the people that can actually perform what they fucking record. So that's my thing. But outside of that, I'd be like, okay, we tune where we need to or whatever. I'm not above it, but I want it to be organic. I wanted it to be like when I thought about records like Pearl Jam 10, where you had nuances and things that added real color and that were genuine and weren't overly produced in that sense and just trying to be, competitive with all the pop singles. That was the type of aspect of also saying, hey, this is a record. We're leaning into the vibe that it's a record. And like, we're releasing singles, but they're not written to be singles. We're just choosing our favorite four, right? And so, so that's kind of how we got to that point, which was cool. But it was really the vocal thing. I wanted that same organic approach where there are certain things vocally that are just in there, like a sigh here or there, or, and I think it adds character. But the one thing that I didn't mention that I am stoked on, and Jay laughs because it's always like it was a big deal to me, was that I wanted to do a bunch of like, when he talks about the analog and fun things, all the side effects, I was pretty adamant from my inspiration of like loving on Eminem and these characters that we've grown up watching, over the years and shit, that I wanted to do them audibly, and I did. And so I was stoked on this record that all these little like explosion and turning tables, the dog howls for our pets, that's me doing all that shit, which is a lot of fun because I was like, we could have gone through sound banks and we tried at a certain point, but I was like, nah, I wanted to do this where literally we're trying to be that organic or I'll cut it. And so the fact that a lot of them ended up on there and kind of gave it even a little bit more story for me was just yet another added kind of like artifact on the tracks that I think brings it to life in a different way. And I thought was just super fun and interesting for me where I am vocally to be able to kind of bring the tracks a little bit to more, to life with some sort of vocal animation in that sense, which is cool. So that's a little spice there, which is different.
Yeah, well, and again, like this, you don't create something like this by accident. Some of it is by accident. There are always those happy accidents.
It's probably more than you think sometimes. But, as far as like writing goes, at least, I think writing is accidental to an extent.
And again, like I imagine if we were to talk to any person that we admire about the record that we love for whatever reason, they would have the same things to say about it. I mean, it's part of this is why I always liked to dig into bands and what their mindset was going into recording a certain thing or a certain record and kind of just giving it a more deeper analysis. But I do just want to say, we're making it seem like this music is inaccessible, and the music is actually very accessible. It might not necessarily be like pop radio, but it nails the early 2000s vibe that was mainstream at the time. That was like very mainstream. So there are aspects of this record that may be esoteric, but for anyone listening, if you're into those bands, you're going to like this record. And if you're into the deeper elements of your favorite records from those other bands, you've got something else right here. I'm also loving to see that that's kind of having like a resurgence. Early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s is really kind of like exploding again, which it hasn't been for a while. Like rap has kind of been the dominant genre for at least the past 10 years. So I'm really excited to you guys picked a good time to do this in the sense
that was an
that,
accident.
You know,
like when I heard the last,
you know,
I heard the last Bring Me the Horizon record. I'm like, oh fuck, like this is full tilt like 2003. And I heard like bands like Fleshwater are doing like a more 90s grunge meets shoegaze, and like Soulblind just released a record that sounds like Alice in Chains shit. It's like accidentally lined up with all of it, like because we weren't like even really noticing that until it was like middle happening. Very fortunate timing. Really.
We noticed
Thrice has a new
Deftones
record. Yeah,
was blowing up.
Deftones.
Yeah, Thrice. It's been crazy, but it makes sense, man. The world's been in a crazy state, and this shit is emotional and heavy and intense, and it tickles a whole different fancy than it did when things are more carefree and just celebratory and shit. So I think especially also the pandemic kind of freaked everybody out, everyone's nervous system out, and when we couldn't be together and be at live shows and shit like that, that's a big deal. So now, even though fucking shows are more expensive than ever, for somehow or another, people end up going to them because they're selling out apparently everywhere. So, I mean, I think they're very much so worth it. But the vibe. It's just, I think that that's probably where the rock rage is, which is really lucky and really fucking great. I'm excited that it's having this resurgence.
Well, it's like the world is healing. The world is healing. So
rock isn't dead.
Exactly, dude. People are. I mean, dude, TikTok, like trending sounds right now on TikTok. You'd be surprised at how many bands you'd be like, damn, they're using this clip from this song,
bro.
Okay,
you're on TikTok, right? You've seen our shit.
Yeah.
TikTok does not love counters and feelers.
TikTok doesn't like me either. So
okay, because Instagram is down with us and Facebook's all right, but TikTok, just
that's a really hard nut to crack. Plus they're also going with there's all the stuff about China like that. There was a noticeable dip in the activity that I was getting on TikTok when all the legal stuff started happening with the US and TikTok and China. Right. So that app, Instagram, is safe because it's Meta owned and that's an American company, but TikTok, like there's definitely some weird throttling going on, and you guys probably got on there at the worst. It's good that you're doing it. It's good that you're on there doing like, hey, you have a presence there and that people can find you there. But even for me, like there was a noticeable tank in views and likes after all the legal stuff started. And
in fairness, they're an app where you got to play a little bit by their rules. Like we just jump in there and we post stuff that's completely edited and ready to go. And if we waited for like the last step or last little tweak and we did it on TikTok's app, we'd probably get a lot more love. It's just we were in this cycle of putting everything out and our concentration was on Instagram. And by default, we're putting the stuff out on TikTok. I still plan on kind of reposting some of that on my personal and trying to maybe, approach it a little bit different. But other than that, respect what happens on TikTok. It's fucking phenomenal, and so, but it's just something that, we'll contribute to it as we have been, but still maybe something to learn.
I think it's similar to like, okay, this is just, we're doing all this because we like creating things, and that's the same way that we wrote the songs that we wanted to write. We also like made the accompanying content that we wanted to make that wasn't necessarily the highest converting concept out the box. Like I think we tried to do stuff that would perform well to some extent, but we're not doing like the thing. We just wanted to like make we also wanted to be like as artistic as we could be, with like our reels or our TikToks. So we just did that. And like, if that, you know what I mean? So there also wasn't an effort to like just go full tilt into
No, there
like,
wasn't.
just, on purpose, that's like not what we wanted to do. And like a big part of this project is like, what do we want to do? And let's like do that within reason of what would work to like, we don't want to do something that would just tank, but like there's consideration.
And what we could do, I personally, and I know Jay, like we were moving at such a rate where we couldn't literally start to do special approaches to each individual app. Like we had to have our approach and roll it out across apps, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that could make sense, working at the way that we've done it.
Well, and there's also just like being an artist and creative right now, as opposed to other times in history, there's an element of screaming into the void that is different 100%. than has ever been, even before, especially before social media. But for me, that's always like freedom. It's like, oh, cool. I really can do. No one cares. I can do whatever I want. And I would rather people care about me doing something that I really wanted to do. I'd rather that resonate with one person out there than be trying to make something for a bunch of people that I didn't really care about.
Totally.
I would almost argue like, I agree with you, James, but I do think that part of it is like, we're so used to seeing other people like, I don't think like the screaming into the void part's different in the outcome, but I think people's expectations are different because I see so many like the internet's like the perfection version of like everyone's everything. So when you see people winning everywhere, there's no losing that you see. It's like, why am I not winning? When most people are actually not winning. You know what I mean? So there's like this fucked up expectation side of it, which I hate. I widely hate social media, but like I do use Instagram. You know what I mean? I like my memes, and I like sending dumb shit to my wife, and like that.
We can't escape it. We got sucked in. We're the last
it's
generation
total love
that
hate.
remembers. Yeah, that remembers what life was like before this shit, and it's just a part of our life now. Cool.
Yeah.
I also want to make sure we spend at least a little bit of time talking about the production process, because the production process of this is also an epic story of its own. So can you guys kind of just like give the simple idea of how you wrote Remote, and then kind of hit the points where like you did get together in particular with the studio, and tracking final things and mixing it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jay. I tapped into some of this earlier, so I'll let you kind of roll with this and I'll fill it in.
So like generally I would, I mentioned earlier, like half of these were riffs that I like, seeds and ideas that I had before, and some of them were new ideas. I generally would just have a bunch of concepts, and I would like, in this room, in this apartment, just kind of smash together like song forms. And I would, I did passes of demos that I'd sent a demo of a song instrumentally, drums, bass, guitar, to Hani. And then from there, a lot of the times it wouldn't change much at all. Or there'd be moments where, he would say, hey, I kind of want to do this thing here. Can this part be shorter? It would make better sense with what I have in mind for it. I'd be like, yeah, sure. There was a moment, I was talking to Hani about this recently. Like, Bye Bye Ghost is a song that was like, I sent to him. I was like, here's an idea. It's not done. Like, the form of that song is weird. It's like ABC, ABC done, which is bizarre. And I was like, here's an idea. And then he like just wrote on it and sent me the thing back. He's like, I love it. It's great. I'm like, oh, fuck, you're right. This is cool. Not my intention. Doesn't matter. Cool story, I get like, yeah. So like, as far as like the technical element of like recording it was all done in this room, demos. And then I did too many passes, redoing stuff, retracking things. All of the live to production guitars that you hear on the record were tracked here. Through off camera, I have like a handful of gear. So it's all like,
it's a glorious wall of gear. Okay.
I can
You're
like
really
move my camera slightly.
That is glorious.
So there was like, I can reamp from here too. I think I mentioned this. I use Nick Morzov created a bunch of IRs, which impulse responses, which emulate cabs, guitar cabs digitally. They sound very good. So I used those. I used a combination of my amps, a combination of my guitars, track guitar here. We did reamp bass at Nick's studio, which was the most aggressive. It was basically a full day of us just like tuning it until we laughed because of how disgustingly heavy the picked bass parts sound. I have like iPhone clips of shit falling off the walls because it was like so. Yeah. So that was retracked there. The drums are all MIDI drums I programmed, which took so much time to like figure out because I didn't want to be the trope of like guitar guy that programs drums is always like everything's at 127 hard as fuck and it's like it sounds terrible. It not sounding bad is a combination of me like meticulously setting all the dynamics and velocities to everything, offsetting things to nothing's on grid 100%. And then Nick just being a fucking expert at drums. Like Nick, I don't even know what he did. It's like based in Superior Drummer 3. There's triggers. There's other shit. It's crazy. Whatever. He's a drum wizard. So yeah, like it was a combination of things instrumentally recorded here, and then sent to Nick, and we kind of hashed it out there. And like, Hani, I'll let you. I mean, I didn't mention the vocal stuff because I want to let you speak to your own recording process, but.
You can feel free to mention whatever you want, Jay. Because I mean, I look at it like you and I both have co-produced it together too. So there are things that I'll mention that I love on guitar or whatever. So feel free.
Yeah.
But I don't mind.
As far as your
speaking
experience
well.
recording it, like, you know.
Oh, in that sense, yeah. No, totally.
So you went to LA to record vocals, or did you do that in Nashville?
No. So I recorded all the vocals in Nashville, and then we decided to just for the experience and content and the whole nine, especially with Nick, we decided to give a song a shot if we had time on one of these trips that I was down there for. And so we were able to squeeze it in and weren't sure, how that was going to go, but it ended up going great for that session. And so then we used that session on for Bye Bye Ghost. So all the vocals done there was at the studio with Nick, which was such a cool experience. And I'm really happy that we did it. And then the rest of it was all done here in my home studio, which was cool too. So as far as with regards to the developing of the songs and stuff too, it's been an interesting process too, because like even the drums at the beginning were a lot more simplified and a lot more like, as he's talking about how he tweaked them to make them feel a lot more human and whatnot. We wrote around drums that weren't as evolved as they are now, which was kind of cool. And then so as things started to fill in, there would be times where we'd be like, oh man, Jay was like, let's have other drummers listen to this shit, make sure that we're on a roll. And then there just became a certain period where, I had reached out to a couple of people. Jay, we were very just intent about doing this properly. And that's where I got to give it to Jay with the fucking meticulousness and to Nick, because this was such a massive task. The drums are a huge reason why this record took the amount of years that it took. And that's all good because it's like the love was really put in. And so the way it just basically got to a certain point where, once we were on a roll and once I knew that Jay, was doing sick fills and shit, and they were not too ambitious that an actual drummer could sit in and throw down, then I had full trust. And, if there were anything that I felt needed a tweak, I'd tell him here or there. But towards the end, I just felt like Jay and I got more and more and more dialed and just understanding this rhythm that we're in. And, and then he was just fucking, man, just he had his head down and was just grinding those out. So by the time I got a lot of the stuff, I would have something to write on, a riff or a structure and some pretty cool drums. And then as I'd be writing, he'd be, tweaking things. And, Jay, I can't remember if when you started to kind of like take the next step with the drums and really perfect them, if that was when I was still kind of in the course of writing or
no, I mean,
we
I
already
redid
had
the
everything
drums.
done, right?
I redid the drums like twice completely or 3 times completely. I bought different plugins. I redid the guitars several times when I got,
There were so many things because I also took my time with writing my parts. Sometimes it would be really fast. Sometimes I'd give Jay 2 fucking songs at a time because he'd give me, multiple ideas. I love to write like that too. to have a bunch of ideas, feel inspired, and kind of attack what I'm going for. And now I'm getting off the drums. But one other thing that I think is unique to say here is in my experience of being the type of frontman that would jam a lot with bands, I'd try to come up with my parts and whatnot. And then I got into this period where, all the bands that I would be involved in structuring or my personal stuff, that's a whole different side of me. But when I would audition for bands or try to collab with people, a lot of the time when I was younger, I would just get given a song that someone recorded and it was already, the amount of bars were already locked in and I had to just work with it. And especially with unique artists, like there's I did a song that never came out, but with a band called The Apex Theory, and there was a bunch of unique parts. And so, I get a song like that, and I would have to really dissect the song, kind of conceptualize parts, figure out how my lyrics and the melodic structure will work to tell a story, and try to write somewhat of an epic, in that sense. And so, what I really loved here was there are those two sides to me. The side where I'm in control of guitar and I'm already looking at the structure from day one and I approach things completely different, or I took the approach that I had learned from, either auditioning or getting given music and trying to collab with cats. I took that approach with working with Jay remotely. That was where we say, we both acted in the sense of, as producers, if we needed to push each other or say something we really didn't like, although that wasn't often. But a lot of it was to let him feel that he could dream up parts and structures. Or, I didn't always know if he was giving me something like Bye Bye Ghost, if that was done in his eyes or not. I just knew he was giving me something and I was going to complete it. And if I loved it, then I had an opinion about it, So it's been very interesting in that sense. And it's been such a cool challenge for me to write with him, where we have like two songs. Dreaming from Hell is obviously, an epic that goes through all these different sections and shit. But it's just, it has what I think two choruses, what Jay thinks is one chorus, I believe. But the bottom line
it has
is
any choruses.
It's confusing because the song is just crazy like that, right? And like, so my mind, I try to thematically find where's that chorus, where's this, but then it started, a lot of it becomes about lifts and a vibe and just creating an atmosphere and an experience. And, we also have Phobia, same type of scenario. It absolutely gets the message across probably better than if it had normal structure, and immerses you in this vibe and, hits all these points because it doesn't have a repeating chorus. So from the standpoint of always, obviously I'm a singer. I fucking love pop melodies too. I love hearing repeats. I love all that stuff. This is a real fun approach of just completely not giving a shit about that and saying, hey, it's a record. We're going in, and writing that way and not worrying about it and just seeing what came out. And it's funny because I think like those are, two songs I deeply value on the record. And I know Jay and I both adore Phobia. And that's one of those where it was just like when I first got what he sent me, I was like, what the fuck do I do with this? I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous. And then as I started working through it, then I'm just having these moments, these aha moments where I'm like, holy shit, this is working. And I'm like writing it, I'm just thinking outside the box for myself and I'm being super proud of what I'm coming up with in that moment too. And so it became a real cool thing, man. Like, I would feel excited to send that shit to Jay, just be like, what's he gonna say? And like once we got to a point where we already felt like fans of each other, most of the time it was a positive reaction. So it was just excitement to be that much closer to the end game, which is cool.
Thing.
Yeah, totally. Which is really rad. So anyway, sorry, Jay. I don't know if I
quick note, it's fine. Well, quick note on Phobia, and I won't take too long, is I wrote that song, talk about like different meanings. There is, in 2020, there's something called the Great Conjunction, is when Jupiter and Saturn were like overlapping in the sky. You remember that. I wrote a lot of that song on that night, and it's literally, and so like I like taking numbers and just like applying rules to like riffs and ideas. The time signature of that song is fucked, and it goes from the start of it's in 5/4, And then the ending of it's in like 6-8 or 3-4 because Jupiter and Saturn are the 6th and 5th planets from the Earth. And like, so it starts out in Jupiter, and then like the middle is like the middle where it's going both time signatures, and then it goes to Saturn at the end. So like that was kind of my framework for that song. And he wrote,
no
like,
wonder I was anxious as fucking wrote Phobia. Jesus Christ, bro.
So like the beginning of that song is heavy, and the end of that song is heavy because they represent conceptually those different planets, and it's floaty in the middle because there's like a traversal that's like highly conceptual. I also love Cave-In, so Jupiter's always cool. But like, yeah, like, so there's just different, there's different stuff representing these things for both of us. But that's like also, that's before we had the band name. Like that literally is the band name. You know what I mean? Like I had this weird mathematical approach, and he wrote about something completely different.
And if you look at it like that, the way I interpret that when I'm listening to it is it starts up heavy. That's the shit I'm dealing with my phobia. Puts me into my calming state in your middle, where I'm now talking about it and trying to quell my fear. And then at the end, getting through it and fucking going head on. So it's like, it's an interesting thing because it puts me into soundscapes, but then I'm interpreting it, and how like that, my experience in these moments, So I love hearing that from you, Jay. And you've told me that in the past. It's just, there's so much fucking information when we start to get into everything that inspires us that it's bananas. But on the same tip, it's still awesome. I still love hearing it. So it's, that's a cool factor.
Well, again, like you guys should really be proud of this. It's not an easy thing to do. It's very hard. You chose to do something very hard and you succeeded. And again, I was invested in it for a while. I was definitely chomping at the bit to hear, what you guys came up with. And by every metric, you exceeded whatever I was expecting. And I had high expectations, but it just exceeded that in every way.
Appreciate it,
and
man.
Again, like you guys should be proud of that. This is what happens when 4 years of blood, sweat, and tears culminate. And again, part of the reason why I started doing bands at all is because I wanted to collaborate with people. So the fact that you guys were able to find the ebb and flow of your creative partnership and use it to your advantage, it shows. Like this is something that is far greater than just the sum of its parts, which is you two guys and a few other people that kind of stepped in and aided at certain points. Your engineer and keyboard buddy,
Nick Morzoff.
Yeah, Nick Morzoff. Shout out Nick Morzoff. And the keyboard guy
Travis Fodor.
Travis Fodor. Shout out those guys.
And shout out to a lot of our, family members and, all the people that have been there for us and literally been supportive through the process, because we've been deeply vested in this, and all of our friends and whatnot. I mean, we got a whole tribe around us. So mad love for all the support.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
my wife Kaylin's heard these songs. I would say more than me because that's impossible, but like close to the amount. Yeah, she's got to be tired of them. Yeah. She's still very supportive about all the songs, and I love her. Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, and again, like this is something to be proud of. Very few people record a whole record, and it's something that you can be proud of, and that in 10 years you can look back on and be like, yeah, that was pretty badass. I'm glad we did that.
Thank you very much, bro.
As we're kind of getting to the end here and wrapping stuff up, I want you guys to give the people words of encouragement for anybody that might be on the fence or hesitating to undertake something like this. If you guys have some words of encouragement or the things that helped you get this through to the end, to hopefully inspire someone else to take on something like this.
Get you first, Hanny.
I mean, that's a tough one. The thing is, the best words of encouragement I can give is to, don't look at the end game, look at the process and enjoy the process. Be an artist, or if it's not art, just be genuinely vested and, do good by other people that come into your sphere and try to help you accomplish the things that mean the most to you, and basically just keep your head down and grind until you're really proud. Don't show everybody too early and look for quick credit, because the greatest things aren't built that way. So just kind of like stay focused. Don't ever fucking quit. Not until your dying day. Don't ever fucking quit. When you're given this incredible energy an opportunity to be a creative and to make something literally mustered out of nothing is such a gift, and it's just something I hold so much incredible value to. So when I can share that with other people, it's my favorite kind of bond. And I would just say, look for those types of people that help lift you up, not the type that hold you back from these goals. So believe, and don't listen to people that tell you that you can't, because they're projecting, even if they fucking love you. You know what I mean? So just believe.
Love that. Yep, I love that.
This isn't going to sound encouraging at first, but I swear it is.
I did it for you, Jag.
Yeah, we could just use your answers.
He covered feel good now for you.
I see so many people, and this traverses my work. This traverses creative friends that do things because they feel like they're supposed to. Stop doing that if you don't have to. Like, the way this whole thing was created was for us. We wanted to do a thing, and we did that thing that we wanted to do. There's one song on this record that's exclusively in 4/4. Like, if I was trying to make shit that was like gonna convert well, I wouldn't have done that. But I wrote this weird shit, like I was saying with Phobia, because I wanted to. I encourage people to like do the weird thing that they want to, and like lean into that. And like, because you like it, make shit that you like, that doesn't exist, that you would want to listen to, look at, watch, whatever. And just like work at that. And if you don't have like a deadline, which is healthy to an extent until it's like you could kick it down the road forever, just take your time, chip away at something. You're probably learning things without realizing it as well. When I started doing this, I didn't know how to do... I dabbled in video editing. I didn't know how to do much of that. I dabbled in like audio recording. I didn't have half the gear I had to like, so it's been a growing process. So enjoy, Hani said this too, but like enjoy it. Realize that you're like growing, probably you're doing a thing that you like, and like, yeah, just enjoy the thing that you make and like enjoy making it, and don't worry about the other stuff. And you can like reflect on it later, but don't do it for that reason. Do it because you want to, basically.
I love the, there's even like a yin and yang balance into your words of encouragement. I love that. Yeah, again, like, you guys should be really proud of this. This record kicks ass. It's something you can look back on in the future and feel good about it. And, you know, I just hope that it inspired you to maybe cook something else up in the future, but maybe after a little break, you know?
Yeah. We've talked about it. We're tired, but yeah, I mean, I'm always going to want to write stuff. Yeah.
And again, the door's open, and at least now working remotely is not weird. That's a thing we can all do. We've all had to adjust to being able to do that to a certain extent. And in particular with these creative things, you know, you don't have to worry about playing shows. That's not a worry. If all you're worried about is doing music, you guys can literally be anywhere and still find a way to coordinate and communicate. And, you know, I can't wait for it. I can't wait for the next record, even if it's 14 years from now.
No,
I will still listen to it,
and,
okay?
and I appreciate it. And we have plans still too, man. Like, you know, potentially we're going to get a video going. We're going to get, you know, we might have some shows coming up. We just have it open-ended, but because we have a group around us, we still have, you know, the potential of meeting up in LA and doing some stuff. So it's open-ended at the moment, but it's not like a hard stop after this record with no plans for the future at the moment. We definitely have talked about music and all that sort of stuff. We're just excited to still, you know, we're only a month into the record out, so we're pushing this for a while and super stoked on that. And then, you know, and we're going to find other creative ways to still bring this record to light, you know, 6 months from now even, and show other seeds and different perspectives on it. And then if things come in the future, we'll just play it by ear. But right now, we're just super stoked on where it's at, which is nice.
What you've got.
Yeah.
Well, dudes, thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you.
I know this is like
thanks,
a huge thing for us to get coordinated. I'm glad we were able to wait until after the release so we could play some of this music. But again, like, I love this record. I hope you guys love this record. If you're fans of any of the bands that we were talking about, I would put money that you're going to love this record too. So check it out. I'll have the links in the description below. And we're gonna play this one out on Turning Tables, another song off the record. And this has been the Totally Legitimate Business podcast, folks. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you, James. Been a real pleasure.
This has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. The end. With your host, James Oliva. Executive producers, Clint G and James Oliva.
That's obnoxious.
Sound design, mix, and master by James Oliva.
Literally no one cares.
For more Totally Legitimate Business, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Totally Legitimate Business or add us on TikTok at TLB Pod.
When will this end?
Thank you for listening. Now get back to work.
Move it along, buddy.